ball is life, plain and simple. You know, ask any baller. If you know, you know.
The game has changed, but it's still the same. You want it, go get it.
Shazam!
The inbounds pass comes into Jordan. Here's Michael at the foul line. The shot on Elo. The Bulls win! They win it!
Mike, you're honestly telling me that he's top 5.
Yeah.
Top 5 of all time.
No question about it.
Booker, this is for the win. Got it! Wow!
The ruling on the floor is made basket.
You know, one thing's for sure. Over at Valley Sports Plug, you're never going to catch us slipping.
With the first overall pick, the Phoenix Suns select
3, 2, 1, yeah!
Welcome to Pass the Outlet, episode 9. I'm your co-host, Michael Benjamin, joined as always by my wingman, Chris Patrick. Chris, how are you doing tonight, man?
Doing good, man. Feeling good. Got to do some hooping yesterday. Get to talk some hoops today. So really just living the dream.
Yes, sir. Big Cats are 2-0. Got some good momentum on the floor. But we got a jam-packed one for you today. We're talking NBA trends after the trade deadline. Kevin Durant, his start with the Phoenix Suns and the incorporation we're already seeing, March Madness, and a whole bunch more. But Chris, I want to start right off the bat what we've seen in the NBA. We're about a month since the trade deadline and about a week and a half since the All-Star break. And I want to pass it right over to you first. Who are some teams that you're keeping an eye on going down the stretch who might be able to make some noise on this playoff run?
Yeah, man, this is a topic I've been itching to talk about because I was talking with VSP Tallman just about how there's really some teams that have exposed themselves as not really being true contenders. And I think that's what this stretch of the season is largely about, is seeing who are the real contenders versus who are the pretenders, if you will. So I kind of today in show prep made a quick list of some risers and fallers, if you will, some teams that are trending up and then others that might be trending down. So just right off the top, it's funny, right before we launched, I was talking about how I had the Knicks as one of my teams that are trending upwards. Still probably the case, but they lost to the Hornets tonight. Like, Hornets aren't even close to being in contention to make the playoffs. Obviously, with the LaMelo Ball injury, that's tough. So you kind of understand it there. But also, they're a younger team. But the Knicks, man, they're still looking good. They got Jalen Brunson. Julian Randle's having a career season. Tibbs is a good coach. So they're going to figure it out. And I think, be competitive in the playoffs. But really in the East, it's going to come down to two teams for me, and that's the Celtics and the Bucks. The Celtics, Tatum's been out of the lineup, and it's shown that they're struggling with that. They've lost a couple of games here recently. The Bucks, however, just crazy, man. They didn't lose the entire month of February. I think they even won 16 straight, I think I saw, including one against the Suns, which probably could have used KD in that game. But that's my other team that's trending up. Obviously, you can call me a homer, but the Phoenix Suns, man, you had a guy like Kevin Durant and give up. I mean, we gave up Mikal Bridges. I don't want to minimize that. And Cam Johnson, saw him in the intro there, kind of shed a tear, missing him. We were at that game where he went off and had that game winner. Just wishing those two guys the best. But it's funny, the Nets even are technically a playoff team, but I don't know about them either.
I mean, the Nets had that big win against the Bucks, and they're keeping momentum. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Mikal Bridges as an all-star next year, especially if he's going to be a focal point in the offense. But yeah, in regards to my list, kind of the same thing. I mean, I had the Knicks. They were on a 9-game winning streak until their loss tonight against the Hornets. Sometimes it just happens. You have an off night. You said Julius Randle didn't shoot very well tonight as well. So got to take those lumps. But I've really liked what Jalen Brunson has come in and really set the pace for the Knicks and put them back to the forefront in the East. I mean, if you're looking at the NBA rankings as a whole right now, they got Bucks number 1, Nuggets 2, Celtics, 76ers, and Knicks. So 4 of the top 5 they're saying is coming from the East. 6 is actually the Cleveland Cavaliers, and then the Suns have moved up into the 7th spot. So still got a lot of maneuvering to do with that. But, Cleveland was having that pressure from the 9-game winning streak from the Knicks. I'm wondering how it's going to go in the playoffs, if they're going to really be heavy-handed with Donovan Mitchell and rely on his scoring. How does Darius Garland kind of fit into that mix? And what do you do with Jarrett Allen? I mean, I have him on my fantasy team. I think I was cursing to you last night, Chris. He had 4 points and 6 rebounds, and he had been a solid contributor this entire season. But, unfortunately, the likes of Milwaukee's second-ranked defense, they got Jay Crowder, who had some big threes in that Suns game. Some other teams, the Kings, they're still surprising us, man. They're keeping pace. They've actually scored over 127 in 3 games since the break. They just keep putting the ball in the bucket, and De'Aaron Fox is having a stellar season. He was an all-star for a reason. Unfortunately, the Warriors are moving up once again. Golden State getting Steph Curry back.
Yeah,
I just wonder how their health is going to hold up down the stretch as well. Them putting Jordan Poole into that 6th-man spot, I think, is good for them because they'll get that scoring punch that they need. But DiVincenzo has been stepping up for them and keeping pace, and they're right on the Suns' heels right now. And then some teams that were looking kind of going down, the Clippers, obviously the Mavs, they've just been even with Kyrie Irving, still trying to find their footing. And then, of course, the big news with Ja Morant and the Grizzlies, with all of the off-the-court incidents, trying to get his head right, has taken some time away from the team. And we'll see what kind of effect that has on the Grizzlies down the stretch. But, Chris, did you have any of those teams that you were talking about that might be listed as fake contenders, I think you said?
Yeah, the people who are kind of the pretenders, or the teams rather. It's funny you mentioned the Cavs there. That's a team I've really been thinking about. I mean, without Donovan Mitchell, period, they're kind of toast. But even with Donovan Mitchell, if he's not playing well, they really, really lean on him heavily. And I don't know if he's going to have enough gas in the tank to carry that team all the way through a playoff run. It's funny you also mentioned the Clippers. They lost 5 straight once they added Russell Westbrook, including that crazy 175-176 overtime game against Sacramento. Talk about getting buckets, man. I've never seen anything like that. Like, I had to double take when I got the notification to my phone. Like, is that a real score? Who's playing 2K on rookie? Like, absolutely wild. But yeah, the Grizzlies, man, it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen with Ja Morant. Without going too much into that, I just saw today that according to the CBA, he could be facing up to a 50-game suspension, which I would imagine immediately. Did you see that? 50 games?
50 games? That's insane, man.
Yeah.
Especially for a guy who was becoming a face of the league. Ooh, if he were to face that and they really put it on him, that is not good for his branding.
No, and it's going to... And speaking of branding, he just signed a deal, not to derail the conversation, but he had just signed a deal with Powerade. I think you were mentioning that he is going to be the new face of them now that they're relaunching, rebranding, whatever you want to call it. And also his shoe deal with Nike is a lot of question marks for these teams are going to be, or these brands rather, kind of going to be watching, but definitely going to keep an eye on that. I wonder if it's a situation, because I think the way it was written in the CBA is that it's if you bring a firearm on a team plane or into a team facility. So I was kind of talking to Ian today, and he thinks they might have a hard time proving that he brought it on the plane. But it might be enough proof to say, well, how'd it get from Memphis to Colorado?
Right.
Who knows? But there's a number of excuses. But not getting too derailed. The Lakers are another team. The last team I wanted to mention as some fallers and some pretenders. I mean, Mr. Glass, Anthony Davis. I'll always be critical of him. And it's funny because he's been the one guy that's kind of healthy, and now LeBron has that foot injury, and they did get D'Angelo Russell, but he's even gotten banged up since arriving in LA, or arriving back in LA, I guess you could say. So I just think, like you said, there are those teams in the East, and then pretty much the Suns, the Nuggets in the West, I think are the real ones. It's funny. I almost forgot. I had to look it up today that the Warriors are the defending champions. It's crazy how much can change in a year.
I mean, the Warriors went from one of the worst teams in the NBA after Kevin Durant left and found themselves to be champions again. I mean, when you have that DNA, you find a way, and Steph Curry is an all-time great. Klay Thompson, one of the best shooters, if not top 3 of all time. And unfortunately, we have to say it, Draymond Green, he plays his role and helps them, catapult to the top. So they're always somebody who you still got to keep your eye on, especially they're, like you said, they're the current NBA champions. So you can really never count them out. But, like going back to what you said with the Lakers, D'Angelo Russell has missed about 4 games straight with the ankle injury. LeBron James has had his situation with his foot. Health is just going to be such a big deal for most of these teams down the stretch. That's not breaking news for anybody. I know that, but it can go exactly into what the Phoenix Suns need to do if they want to make a title push. And I think I'm ready to make that transition right now, Chris, into Kevin Durant. We've seen him start with the Phoenix Suns and come out firing and hot, 3-0 in his first 3 games. We'll have our breakdown coming tomorrow of the past 5 games, so make sure you keep an eye out on that. But these Suns, man, they're rolling, and Devin Booker and Kevin Durant are to blame if you want to be looking at it as a negative if you're any other teams in the NBA. But I want to pass this question over to you first, Chris. We had conversations about what bringing Kevin Durant in would look like in regards to a transition of this lineup, not only for our starters, but who comes off the bench. And I want to ask you, how do you feel about the transition to start so far?
I think it's been great, man. He's just coming in, and it's almost crazy seeing how smart of a basketball player he is, because he could easily take over a game. I'm not saying this in a critical way, but Devin Booker has a tendency to kind of take some crazy shots and force and press the issue, where I feel like I haven't seen Kevin Durant do that. And honestly, he's a lot better of a passer than I expected. He'll draw the double and then look for a quick little dump off either to DA or whoever's cutting. So I think it's been great, man. Honestly, he's already one of the fellas. It's almost hard in my mind to imagine that it's only been 3 games, because he just integrated so well. I mean, we were together watching the game against the Mavericks on Sunday, and just crazy performance in that game alone. He was 12 of 17 field goal with 37 points. I think him and Booker each had 35 plus. So if that's what we have to look forward to and to be able to continue to see from them, the sky is the limit. And like we were just saying there, health is going to be a huge factor, and having all these weapons is a really good sign, because if one guy goes down, you still have 2-3 other options that you can go to.
Right. And I do want to touch on your criticisms, I guess you could say, of Devin Booker. He has been known to, force the issue a little bit more. But one thing that we're already seeing is the one-on-one matchups that he's starting to get. They're not forcing the double heavy at him anymore, because you just can't. You got too many weapons on the outside. But like we said, I don't think that was really ever a question of how Kevin Durant was going to fit in. He's a all-time great. Those guys just figure it out right away. It was going to come down to how these other pieces around him really figure it out. I think the biggest 2 obviously are Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton. And we've seen kind of both sides of the spectrum, Chris Paul has already taken the step back, becoming almost the 4th option, it seems like. But he's going to have to continue to hit those open shots when he gets them, because he's going to have so many just open looks. It's going to be crazy down the stretch. You can't believe it. I mean, we saw it in that Mavs game exactly. Like, Josh Okogie didn't shoot very well, but a lot of those corner threes were just wide open. He just couldn't cash them out. And we saw down the stretch, Ish Wainwright was able to, with the same similar looks, because those defenses just have to compound on the inside when those guys drive. And Kevin Durant's such a smart player in regards to understanding where to get to his spots, not really forcing the issue, and understanding the length that he has as a player who can handle the basketball. He can shoot basically over anybody. So all he needs is a little bit of space, and it's cash money, baby. Mm-hmm. But I do also like the way that he's incorporating himself, not just as a leader, but as a part of the team, right? You can see he's really kind of got a cool relationship with Jock Landale. They're kind of buddy already. He's starting to trust him in the paint when he's in those second unit with him. And he was given mad props to Ish Wainwright on the floor those always are the things that get me juiced watching as a fan after a guy hits a big shot, and then you get that, appreciation and love from one of the best players on your team. Those guys feed off of those kind of things. And those are the guys that the Suns are going to need down the stretch to continue to hit those kind of shots. Because like we were saying in the recap, Chris, I don't know if the Suns win that game if Ish Wainwright doesn't have those 4 threes, because they were crucial down the stretch. And that one with 2 minutes really changed the outlook of that game.
Yeah, no, and that's a great point is Kevin Durant and Devin Booker are going to take most of the focus to where guys like Josh Okogie, like Ish Wainwright, like Torrey Craig are going to have to be able to knock down those open shots. And I think a really promising sign for me is watching Monty Williams be flexible. I think, again, if you check out the recap tomorrow, you'll see, I think we mentioned that was a big criticism of ours, where he kind of stuck to his guys, having Abdul Nader out there in the playoffs after not playing a lick the last 20 games of the season or whatever, and just being like, I trust him. Well, trust only goes so far, Monty, if they're not getting the job done. So it seems like he's kind of woken up to that. And Josh Okogie, 0 of 8 from three-pointer, you're on the bench, buddy. And Ish Wainwright hitting 4 or 5 in that game, absolutely huge. With Kevin Durant on the court making an impact, like you're mentioning, he's talking to guys, talking to Jock, and it seems like after almost every play or any dead ball, he's talking to someone, he's pulling them aside, their game planning, and I love that communication. It's like we talk about Chris Paul almost kind of being like a player coach out there on the floor, and Kevin Durant is at that point in his career with his basketball IQ where he's the same way. So now having 2 of those guys, and I want to say mentor Devin Booker, but dude's in like his 8th season, like he's almost a vet now too. So we're not this young upstart team anymore that we were considered, where it's like, oh, Chris Paul and his babies. Now it's like, no, these are guys that can get the job done. So yeah, it was fun setting records for the most wins in franchise history and making the finals. But honestly, I think this Suns team is better than any team we've had in the last 10, 15 years.
You got to be, even going back to last year when you set a franchise records and wins. I think there's just more leadership, more experience, and guys are ready to go. And when you have 2 of the best players, I mean, obviously 2 of the top 10 players in the NBA on the floor at the same time, you're going to be set up for success. So I think it's easy to say that Kevin Durant has fit like a glove so far with the Suns. And man, I like how you bring up the point where it's like they can still teach Book some things, right?
Oh yeah.
Like you said, he's only 26 years old, but he's a 3-time All-Star. Like, he's been through it now. He's had multiple playoff runs now as well. He's ready to take that next step. But we love this team. We're excited about what's going on. But Chris, it can't be all sunshine and roses all the time, right? That's what part of being a person who watches basketball on a consistent basis is. We just watch it so much. We look to be critical of some things. So I want to ask you, if you had to nitpick the Suns right now and what you've been seeing since the start of Kevin Durant, even though we went 3-0, what are some possible concerns that you might be seeing with this team as we get towards the end of the season?
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked, because one thing that was glaring for me is kind of how I think the defense has taken a little bit of a step back. And it's crazy because Kevin Durant is an extremely good defender. I don't know if we just got comfortable relying on Mikal Bridges to put people in McHale jail and lock people down, but it's got to improve. I mean, we were beating Chicago, like blowing them out of the water in the first quarter of the game we played against them. And then all of a sudden at halftime, we're down by 4. And Chicago's not a team that we should be losing to. That's probably one of my biggest criticisms right now, for sure. I think, again, kind of going back to Josh Okogie, these guys need to knock down their open looks. It's kind of tough. I mean, being wide open. I don't know if you saw, I think it was over the weekend, Draymond Green disrespectfully gave Russell Westbrook like 20 feet of space at the 3-point line, and he didn't shoot it. And it's not like Russ can't shoot 3-pointers, but as much as I kind of dislike Draymond, he is also, again, a pretty smart guy. And he was saying in the postgame, they were asking him about it, and he's like, there's just something psychological about being that wide open where you might tend to overthink it. You're not going to have a quick trigger. And Mike, that second you hesitate where you might shuffle your feet or pump fake it a little bit, that can throw off a rhythm. And So I think these guys are just going to have to get comfortable grabbing and shooting. You mentioned Chris Paul, especially in the Mavericks game. I think he had 3 or 4 opportunities from the top of the key, just wide open 3-pointers with 10 feet of space in either direction. So I think it's just going to be, these guys getting comfortable. I think some of them might be even a little starstruck. Being on the same team as Kevin Durant, or maybe starstruck's not the right word, but hesitant to want to take away looks from him and Booker. And I think you asked me about my concerns, but Booker honestly seems to be so empowered by having his big brother Kevin Durant out there now. I mean, just in the last 3 games, he's averaging 36 points, 7 assists, and 5 rebounds. Really, really excited to see what happens tomorrow in his home debut. It's crazy that all 3 of his first games with the Suns so far have been on the road.
Crazy, right? I mean, oh, dude. Where am I going with this, Chris? You got to help me here.
What do you have criticisms that I like, or do you kind of agree with what I've been seeing in
Right.
defensive struggles?
Right. I mean, I think that's my biggest takeaway. The offensive end, we're going to be able to figure out how to get DeAndre Ayton a little bit more involved. Chris Paul is going to be able to find his spots. Those guys are going to be able to hit their open shots in the wings. You just hope it's on a consistent basis, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think my biggest concerns have been kind of the wing defense. I know that Monty really sticks with kind of a switch mentality in regards to kind of any action on the outside. And there's just been a couple of times where I think the lack of communication has been showing and guys have just been having a little bit too open of looks. But like you said, I think that just comes with time because it's not just Kevin Durant that's on the floor now. Our second unit is completely different now. Terrence Ross is getting a lot more minutes. They're still throwing out TJ Warren here and there, but Ish Wainwright is starting to pick up the slack a little bit. And now Torrey Craig is out of the starting lineup, so he's playing with different guys that he's been used to for the past, I'd say, 2 months, So you got to get those games under your belt, but I think that's just the biggest thing. And the other component with that is Terrence Ross and TJ Warren. We were excited about the scoring punch that they were going to bring in that second unit. But what we've seen so far is the staggering of the stars. There's never really a time frame where one of them is not on the floor. So you don't need that extra, I guess, main firepower from one of those guys. But what they don't give on offense is unfortunately lacking in defense. Terrence Ross looks like a mouse in the house sometimes. They were attacking him against the Mavericks. And it's no fault to his own. That's just smart coaching and smart basketball. If you have mismatches, you're supposed to attack it. But down the stretch, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Ish Wainwright keeps playing well. He could continue to see 15 to 20 minutes a night just with his bigger body and his ability to play defense. And he's not a guy who needs to shoot very often. He'll hit his shots. It's not going to be consistent like the Mavericks game. You know what I'm saying? But he just brings a different edge on the defensive end. And Josh Okogie's not going to go 0 for 8 all the time, but he's going to stay aggressive. And I've really liked the way that he's played the past month. But there's going to be some times where he needs to understand, hey, buddy, let's make sure that we get the ball to the big dogs. You know what I'm saying?
Well, right. Absolutely. And I think for those guys you mentioned, Ish Wainwright, Okogie, Terrence Ross, these next 17 games, this last month of the season is really going to be the trial period where Monty Williams can feel out what his rotation is going to be for the playoffs. Because ideally in the playoffs, you're going to want your stars playing big minutes, and you're going to probably want to run a tight 8 to 10 man rotation. And right now it seems like we got like a 12 or 13 man rotation. And Monty even said as much in a post game where they asked him why TJ hadn't been sniffing the court. And he's like, just got a lot of guys to play. I mean, Campaign just came back. He wants to get minutes. Do we even still have Landry Shamet? I don't know if I've seen him.
So he had his injury issue, and I guess it wasn't healing up. And so when they were on the road, he came back to Phoenix to get it double checked. I haven't really seen much of an update yet, but that's another guy that I don't know if he's really completely a Monty guy, but how does he fit into the role or the floor if he can at all?
If at all, right.
Honestly, at this point, I don't know, even when he gets back, what minutes are really there for him. I could see him maybe getting a little bit more because he does have a little bit more defensive prowess, but we will see, man. We will see.
Yeah, it might just for him specifically, I'll just say it might be a situation, or it might be even smart to say, hey, take the rest of the season, get healthy, and we'll reevaluate everything in the offseason. Because right now, these guys in the rotation, they're all getting comfortable together, and we need them to be cohesive and go wire to wire where they're playing good on both ends. Because another point to make is with the concerns about the defense, the offense has also been getting stagnant, where we fall back into a lot of one-on-ones and the ball movement slows down. So bringing a guy back in and throwing that wrench into the mix might not be the smartest thing when you're gearing up for a championship run.
Oh, Chris, I'm just so excited, specifically for these next 2 weeks. We got some really cool matchups. We're playing the Thunder twice. We're playing the Kings. The Bucks are coming to town, and then we're playing the Warriors as well. So it'll be some good tests for this team. The schedule doesn't get any easier for the Suns. So if they want to make, a splash and make sure that people are fearing them going into the playoffs, now's the time. But now is the time to change course and dive into what we're all here for, which is March Madness. I can't believe it. We're at that time. The craziness has already started. I believe the Pac-12 tournament starts on the 8th. UCLA won the Pac-12 conference outright. Unfortunately, ASU faltered, didn't get one of those wins against the California schools over the past week. So if they want to make a tournament push, they got to win this tournament. But Chris, before we kind of start diving into what we're seeing around the country and then obviously the NCAA tournament, I wanted to kind of pick your brain on what you're thinking about for the Pac-12 as a whole, who you might be looking at in the tournament to win that, and if there's any teams that might make a splash in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, you mentioned UCLA winning the conference outright. I think they have a really good shot at it, honestly. And what's going to be interesting is I'm curious if they would rather be a number 1 seed in an Eastern bracket or be a 2 seed in the West behind Houston. I feel like they probably almost want to be Houston, in Houston playing the 2nd seed and have maybe a little bit of an easier path. But I'm not really worried about them. I mean, I was talking to Ben a little bit about UCLA and just the fact that they're an older team and they play really good defense. Defense is huge in any level of basketball, but I feel like especially college basketball, where the game has kind of shifted in my lifetime easily, where now the whole game is stretching, right? So if you have guys that can get out on shooters, that's gonna play huge. I saw that the ASU is going to be up against Oregon State in the first round there tomorrow, so I'd love to see them in the tournament, but I really doubt it at this point. And even if they do make it, it's not going to be anything that they get very far at. But the other Pac-12 team and Arizona team, Arizona, U of A, I think they have a good shot, maybe not of winning it all, but of making some noise in this tournament. So definitely going to be keeping an eye out, rooting, back to pack, as you will. I think that's a saying, right? But those teams are standing out to me for sure. I think it kind of surprised me that Houston was the number 1 team in the country. Kind of might tell you how closely I'm keeping up with the college scene. But I was watching over the weekend some highlights of their power forward, Jarris Walker. He's a freshman, man, but he looks real good. He is a nice game. He's a 6'9" forward. Has a good post game, attacks the basket strong, but also has a nice touch on his shot. So if the players around him can keep pace and keep competitive, Houston could be a team to watch too. It's the last thing I'll say is it's kind of crazy. We always used to see these powerhouse teams, Duke and Kentucky, being the top dogs year in and year out. And now not so much the case.
I mean, North Carolina was in the championship last year and they might not even make the tournament. So, kind of crazy. But yeah, we're keeping an eye on the conference tournaments this week. A couple of different conferences. Like you said, Houston seems to be the best team in the country and out of the AAC, but Memphis was right on their tails. And they had to win that game against Memphis this past weekend off of a buzzer beater. That's one thing that I always do love about college. I don't follow it as much as the NBA, obviously, but man, it's truly competitive. And we see so many heartbreaking game-winning shots just all throughout the season, especially now with March Madness coming. But so they're definitely the favorite in the ACC. Like you said, yeah, the criticism, there's been struggles there, but Duke is still the favorite, even though they haven't had as much of a great year with Mike Krzyzewski finally going off into the twilight.
Crazy.
As far as the Big East, we're seeing UConn as the favorite. Big Ten looks like the picks are split between Purdue and Indiana. And like you said, Pac-12, top two are UCLA and Arizona, probably leaning towards UCLA specifically because they just won that matchup against Arizona this past week. But keep an eye out because we got Selection Sunday coming up on March 12th for the 68-team field. First 4 games are going to be March 14th and 15th in Dayton. And the first round will be March 16th and 17th. Before I dive into any more of what we're looking at here, Chris, how many brackets do you normally make a year?
That's a great question. It's kind of waned in the past couple of years, I'll be honest. I don't know if that's just getting busy with life or what, but typically I try and do two minimum, sometimes 3, as many as 3, 4, or 5. I think the most I've ever done was probably 6 brackets. And I'm old school, right? I like to print out the bracket and write it all in by hand, and then I put it on my refrigerator. And as the tournament's going, I cross off and and highlight so I can have a visual representation of just how horribly I predicted the bracket would break down. But the one thing that I don't like, I know some people do, but like the first 4 in or the play in, whatever it is, it screws up your whole bracket making process. So I literally don't make my bracket until those games are decided. Because if you pick one team that's in the play in and then they don't make it, it can screw up everything. And it's just like, nah, I'm not doing it. But I want to see what everyone else's bracket's going to be like. So I think probably through Yahoo or one of these sites, Valley Sports Plug is going to set up a bracket challenge, and you guys can see how you match up against us. I mean, Mike, you're going to do a bracket for sure, right?
Oh, 100%. I go back and forth every once in a while, but normally my bracket's how I kind of do my fantasy teams. It's 1 or 2 max. Like I can't do any more than that, or it just gets chaotic. Then I'm scratching off too many sides, trying to realize, oh no, this one's completely busted, but this one might have it. And then I'm rooting for the wrong teams that I might not really want, just too much. That's why they call it March Madness. But yeah, make sure you guys stay tuned. We'll have that bracket challenge information coming up probably next week at the beginning after Selection Sunday. Make sure you get involved, see how you match up. Maybe there might be some prizes. I don't know, but you guys got to stay tuned for that. But want to dive a little bit more into what we're seeing here. First round, like we said, is going to be March 16th and 17th. The Final Four this year is actually in Houston, Texas. I was going to say, Ben, man, maybe he needs to get on StubHub or SeatGeek, see if he might be able to grab a ticket and then head out to Houston. That'd be super cool, man. That's definitely something on my bucket list for one day. You know what I'm saying? As far as West Coast sites, there's only 3. It looks like in Sacramento, Denver, and Las Vegas. I feel like it's been a while since it was in Arizona. I can't tell you when the last time it was, but that would be our opportunity to maybe go and check out one game. But yeah, like we said last year, the champion was Kansas, won over North Carolina 72-69, erasing a 16-point lead. Crazy to think that North Carolina might not make the tournament after being in the championship last year. But also in the women's tournament, South Carolina, they defeated UConn 64-49, which crazy to me was actually they ended UConn's undefeated streak in title games. So Gino Auriemma, if he got his squad to the title, you basically could mark it down. It was free money for you. But last year they lost. It was actually the most watched women's finale since 2004. So the game keeps growing, and I love to see it. But of course, our favorite thing to know is, what are the odds? Who am I putting money on, right? And I got the top 5 for you. I got Houston Cougars. They're favored right now at plus 650, followed by last year's champ Kansas at plus 800. Then you have the Alabama Crimson Tide at plus 900. Purdue plus 1,000. and a Pac-12 favorite, UCLA at plus 1,300. Chris, is there anybody that you're putting money on so far?
Not yet. Not yet. I haven't quite pulled the trigger on it. I think if I had to put money down on a team to win it all, honestly might be UCLA for all those reasons I mentioned previously. I did though want to chime in real quick. I don't know if you saw this. It sounds like you might not have, but they did announce, I think it was last week, that the national championship will be at State Farm Stadium next year in Glendale.
Woo! Let's go.
And I was trying to look it up. I think it was 2017, 2016. It was the Final Four was here. But yeah, I would love to go to a national championship game. That would be absolutely insane. I mean, it's funny. We might have to keep do a special edition off-season Tallman ticket, March Madness edition. See what he's betting on.
Dude, imagine going to that game sitting in the upper level at State Farm. Gonna have to freaking pull up double binoculars, dude. Holy smokes, man. Oh, Chris, I'm so excited for March Madness to be here. I really don't have any investment in any teams unless I put money down. We'll find out. I'm still reeling from the Super Bowl, guys. So, I'm taking my time right now. But since the tournament's here, and I'm sure we're going to be talking about it the next couple of weeks as it's continuing to go on, Chris, I did want to pass it back over to you before we transition to outlet point guard and just share some of your favorite memories from the NCAA tournament with the people.
Yeah, I was feeling nostalgic today, thinking back. March is primetime basketball season. I love turning on the TV, having the games on my phone while I'm working, and just watching the most random teams play. I think it was UMBC Golden Retrievers one year made it to the Sweet 16 when they had no business. The Cinderella stories always get me. I know one that stood out was a couple years back in 2018, Loyola Chicago made it all the way to the Final Four. Just so many great stories. Sister Jean, the nun from their school, 98-year-old woman, going up to the players and giving them pointers, giving them props, and they listened. So Sister Jean knows what she's talking about. And I had to look it up. I was like, what is Sister Jean up to these days? She's still kicking. She's 103 years old, still going to games. So I don't know if Loyola Chicago is going to be in the tournament this year, but I remember that specifically was a memory that stuck with me. And I know probably for a lot of people too, because even the bettors, because they were, probably people winning a lot of money betting on them. I don't think anyone saw them in the Final Four, but the biggest Final Four, maybe not Final Four, March Madness memory I have, one of the biggest ones is when in 2016, Villanova hit that insane buzzer beater. Me and Ian were at NYPD Pizza watching that game. And it's crazy that I was looking back on that roster. It had Jalen Brunson, our boy Mikal Bridges, Dante DiVincenzo, and Archie Diacono. It was insane. I didn't even realize I was watching it back today that I think it was UNC that they were playing against in that game, and they were down by 3 points with about 12 seconds left. They bring it down, and this guy hits the craziest double clutch 3-pointer I've ever seen in my life. It seemed like he was floating in midair for like 5 seconds, knocks it down, and they think they're going to overtime. They're freaking stoked. There's like 5 seconds left. And this is what we might see some similar things when we go to outlet point guard, but they didn't pressure them at all. They were fully comfortable letting them bring the ball down court, which is just insane to me because the point guard takes the contact. I don't know if they thought he was going to try and drive the lane, get it too, but the D kind of collapses on him. The guy who inbounded it, I forget, Chris something, ends up hitting the biggest 3-point shot of his entire life. And so that just stuck with me, and absolutely insane. The stadium erupted. The stars were out. Michael Jordan couldn't believe it. Just absolutely insane. But I got to know, Mike, what about you? You got any March Madness memories?
I have 2 specific ones, and it's crazy to think about it. Both of these guys have been in the league for a number of years now, probably going on a decade, if that, or if longer. But the 2 that I always think about the most are Butler's run in 2010, where Gordon Hayward had that half-court shot, just barely miss it off the bank against Duke, and they lost that national championship. And then I think my all-time favorite run of all time was Kemba Walker and his run in 2011 with the UConn Huskies, where he legitimately put the team on his back, led them through the Big East tournament, had that incredible step back jumper, and they just had all the momentum going into the tournament and ended up taking it. But those are the two that I think about the most. And it's crazy to think, man. I mean, Gordon Hayward's 10 plus years in the league. Unfortunately, I don't think Kemba's on a team right now, but he's another guy who was in the league for a decade. Chris, maybe we're getting old, man. Ay.
Sounding like it. It sounded like it.
But so all this college basketball talk, and we've been talking about the shot heard around Arizona for a couple of weeks now from ASU versus U of A. And I got to dissect the last 30 seconds with you, Chris, because ever since I saw it, it's just been on the top of my brain, and you got to pull it up for us and run it through so we can break this thing down.
Yeah, let's take a look here, because watching this, it's just we talked about it a little bit, so I won't spoil it, but let's just play it once through real quick and tell me what you're seeing here.
Right. So Washington dribble hands off to DJ Horn right here. He tries to attack, gets it back out to him. And then right here, he gets the dump. Ooh, okay. And then that's a tough kind of fading shot, contested. And then Umar Ballo gets the rebound. It's 1-on-1. Or no, they're in the bonus, so he gets 2. He misses the first one. So you have a decision to make. And U of A decides to make the second one, but not put any pressure, just like you were talking about in that 2016 national championship for Villanova. And I mean, Desmond Cambridge hits a freaking 3/4 court shot. Like, that's still, luck has to be on your side, but there's just a couple of things that had me a little bit irked in the way that this thing went down for Arizona. And then in that last possession, or second to last possession that ASU had, I did have some thoughts on that as well. So we can pull it back to the top, Chris, and I'll pass it over to you first so you can kind of break down what you're seeing from this ASU possession here.
Yeah, so this possession, it seems that they're very, and the college game kind of tends to look that way, where it's a little bit frantic, a little all over the place. I like that pass there, and that's a tough shot. You got the guy coming across. Maybe, some guys might be calling for an over the back call there, but I think there were some other opportunities here where these guys on the bottom aren't really doing a whole lot. Number 5 is creating some good space, but he's just camping out in that lane. Surprised he didn't get a 3-second call. But obviously the refs' eyes are probably all on the ball right here. I honestly, watching this, the more I'm watching it, I don't necessarily have a problem with this shot right here. I think you got to take that. And the fact that he didn't hesitate to pull it is good. But just a tough break when you're down by just 1 point. You only need a 2-point bucket and you're taking a 3-point shot. I think they had just called a timeout prior to this. So it kind of makes me wonder why didn't Bobby Hurley drop something a little bit better, or, maybe prepare them, for this opportunity.
Yeah, Larson for U of A had made a driving layup to put Arizona up by 1, 87-86. Then they came down, took that timeout with about 20 seconds left to set up their action. And I like DJ Horn right there, number 0, trying to kind of attack, and maybe he gets a foul call because, both teams are in the bonus at this point. You're so deep into the contest. It's just normal for college teams to be in the bonus plus with like 2 to 3 minutes left in the game. But I think the biggest thing is after he passed it to Warren Washington right there, let's pause it right there. After he gets that double, when he passes it back out, gets the handoff, and the double right there, Warren Washington is a 7-footer. This is a 14 to 16 foot push shot that all 7-footers should be able to make. And the defender that switches over to him to put pressure right there doesn't seem to be the same size. And I don't understand how he doesn't just handle this ball and level and attack right there. Just shoot that shot. I will live with that shot. And especially like you said, you're only down by 1. I love that take. I love my 7-footer taking that little float push right there. But I think, depending on guys' seniority or depending on moments, if not everybody has that dog in them, I guess, for lack of a
Right.
better term. You know what I'm saying? And one thing that you can keep rolling it as well, DJ Horn, like you said, he doesn't hesitate. And in the college game, in the upper levels of basketball, the openings that guys really have always start to shrink a little bit more. Maybe not so much in the NBA. I think the court is so much bigger. Guys create more space, but especially specifically in college, it's so quick paced and quick twitch. If you have any kind of semblance of an opening, you better let it fly if you have confidence. So I just didn't like the way that he faded his body to the right, which it just is kind of a tough push shot at that point. And you saw that it ended up going off to the right as well. But oh, okay, Chris. So
if I can just jump in here, because I noticed while we had this pause, I see number 10 down here just absolutely wide open. And I know that is kind of a cross-court pass. That's pretty tough. But 0, it looks like they're in some kind of zone here. He floats over to pick him up. And I totally agree with you. That's a shot that he should be putting off the glass or at least taking, because 5 is there getting in position. And I think 10 doesn't stay up near the 3-point line because he probably thinks he's going to take that shot. So he goes in to try and look for the rebound. And then he's kind of surprised, like, oh, what the heck? Why didn't you shoot it? And just instantly turns his back to the basket and one track minded, getting it back out to the guard here.
Yeah, and it didn't look like DJ Horn followed through with his kind of guide hand on that shot as well. That's why it was off. But so Oumar Ballo gets the rebound and he's fouled with 2.9 seconds left. Go back to the top of that one, Chris. So he misses it. I want to ask you, if you're a coach in this position, 2.9 seconds left, Arizona State doesn't have any timeouts. What are you telling your team, and what are you telling Oumar Ballo, who's at the free throw line, to do with the second shot? I want to know what you think. What are your guidance here?
So I'll finish up with what I would tell him to do at the line with that shot. But first, I would set up exactly like they are. They got 2 guys in the paint and 2 guys back on defense. Because the last thing you want is that shot coming off the rim, a pass getting chucked down the court, and them getting a 2-pointer. But even with 2.5 left, that is a lot of space to cover in that amount of time. So I would honestly tell him to miss this shot, because what's going to be easier? You're only looking at 2 options here. They have to get a rebound and with no timeouts try and score a bucket, or they're going to get an inbound to get set, do some off the ball screens, try and get a guy open, and potentially have a half court shot to get the win, right?
1,000%. If you miss the first one with 2.9 seconds left and Arizona State not having any timeouts, you miss the second shot. And you don't try and do a force like crazy shot where it ricochets off the basket. You just tell him to short arm it or let it fly high. So it comes off the basket and there's going to be pressure on the rebound. Maybe Arizona doesn't get the rebound, but by the time that ASU comes down with the ball off of a rebound, there's maybe 2 seconds, right? You're losing 0.9 right there. You're going to have instant pressure on top of him, especially if there's a rebound that's fought for. And then what's going to happen? He's going to try and throw a full court pass within that time frame. It's too little, too late. You're not going to be able to tip in. You're not going to have an option for a shot. And there's just going to be, it would be too frantic. You never want to let guys set up for things like this. That's why it was crazy to me. I'd love to know what the coaching staff told those guys. I don't know if you've done any digging from the post-game conference and that kind of stuff. But now you can roll it forward. He makes the second one. And then, I mean, they had brought one guy back up, but then everybody fleshes completely back past the 3-point line. No pressure at all. And they let him get downward momentum going into that shot. And like we said, it's not a 1 in a million shot. When you're that wide open, you could probably make it 1 out of 40, 1 out of 50 times. You know what I'm saying? To not put pressure, to give them the momentum moving forward off of the inbound like that was just inexcusable as a coaching staff. And then you see his assistant is yelling at him, hopefully saying the same kind of things. But what a shot, man. What were you thinking about that kind of last possession there for ASU?
Yeah, so I wanted to go back just real quick to this free throw. The only thought I can have, maybe playing devil's advocate as to why you would make that second shot, is one, the unlikely excuse is that you're worried that they're going to chuck a full court pass and get a 2-point bucket and beat you if you miss. Or two, so by making it, you're up by 2. So if they do that, it's a tie game. You're going into overtime. Or you're worried about if they miss it. I noticed that U of A is also in the double bonus. So if there's a loose ball foul on U of A on that last rebound, then ASU is going to the line to potentially win it. So I could see that. But honestly, like, you should trust in your ability to box out, grab a rebound, or at the very least, you don't even have to be that aggressive to try and get the rebound. Let ASU get it. And like you said, they have 2 seconds left to make a pass and get a shot off. That's a hard ask. So now we go forward. He misses the first. He makes the second, as we know. And this inbounds, what are they doing? Just everybody right away heading back. Not even any pressure on these two guys to be up on him at all.
I don't know why Larson doesn't hedge towards him. Obviously, you don't want to foul, but to fall back like 4 strides off of him like that, ridiculous.
You're right. And teams, like, I don't know how much at the college level, but I know teams practice those half-court shots. I mean, at least a little bit. And especially guys just messing around before and after games and like whatever in their free time. Guys are taking those shots now. I mean, we see logo Lillard all the time, and everyone wants to be like him and Steph Curry. So yeah, it's not, although it seems 1 in a million, it's really not. Like, that is a makeable shot. I mean, there's even a video out there, probably not online, but you and I were one day just chucking up half-court shots for the fun of it, and we knocked down a couple. And it's just insane that you're gonna, in such a big spot, give a guy that much space to even have a chance when there are just so many things that they could have done to either A, prevent it, or B, make that a lot more of a difficult shot.
Yeah, the main thing you want to do is make it as difficult as possible. And it seemed like they were giving him the freaking red carpet for that shot. I think the biggest thing, the last thing that I'll say about it, obviously, is what you have to continue to remember about the college game is these guys are kids, man. I know it's different nowadays. Guys are basically being groomed from the age of 12 through AAU, private workouts, and guys have incredible skill, but there's just something to say about the years it takes to really become a smart player and be able to adjust to the flow of the game and the situations faster than a coach having to tell you what's going on. I mean, these guys are still growing mentally, and you see right there, that's a mental lapse. But, for the sake of the Pac-12 and the state of Arizona, I hope Arizona can find some momentum going into the Pac-12 tournament. Maybe make it to the title game, maybe squeak it out, and then have some momentum going into the tournament, because I think it's been a while since anybody has really represented in the Sweet 16 from Arizona. So I'd love to see them take it there. But at the end of the day, what a win for ASU. I think Ben was saying first win in about a decade in McHale Center in Tucson.
Crazy.
What a shot from Desmond Cambridge. One that we will be replaying in Arizona for years to come. I promise you that. But Chris, I think it's time for Reddit Reacts, so I'll pass it over to you. What do you got for us this week, man?
Yeah, so shoot, I gotta pull these up here. I am slacking. I will be I thought that you had these, Mike. But I'll just talk real quick while I'm getting this pulled up. I did kind of want to branch out because as we saw, that Mavericks and Suns game was a bit chippy. And so you knew the memes would be aflowing. Everyone would have something to say. And it was not, it did not disappoint as far as what I was seeing in the Suns Reddit specifically. Our friends over at the Suns Reddit, we love them very much. So we have this one. I'll start with. It's a Avengers meme, I believe it is. You see the Mavericks here on low key. We have the referees, and Tony Stark. We have a Kevin Durant.
Oh, dude, it's always crazy to see one guy almost get the same amount of free throws as an entire team. I think Doncic had 19 and the Suns shot like 25. But that's part of his game, right? He creates those opportunities. But sometimes I don't understand the creation that he does is always dipping his shoulder and extending his arm. And I know the league is catered to your best players. They want them to have high profile numbers so you can put it on ESPN, put it on, your national news and make it look like these guys are incredible and that kind of stuff. But Luka Doncic had one of his worst shooting outputs of the season, still scored 34 points because he went to the foul line so many times off of those freaking shoulder dips that they were giving him. I mean, there was a crazy one on campaign where he freaking just completely fleshed him out with the left hand. That last shot that he had as well, is it a flop on Josh Okogie? I don't know. But when I only see the shoulder dip extend with the hand, what am I supposed to think after a time? That's just how it is to create space? What do you think about that, Chris? Am I crazy over here?
Yeah, it almost seems like the NBA might need to address this because it's not. I'll give Luka the benefit of the doubt. You do see other players doing that where they're swiping guys away with their offhand. But at what point is it, having a guard hand versus an offensive foul? I think there's a difference between putting an arm up to kind of shield it from a guy versus literally swiping their hand away. There's a big difference, and it's just crazy to me. I don't want to talk too generically about Mavericks fans, but a lot of the noise I was seeing on Twitter and Reddit, I know those are the highest levels of basketball commentary, but the Mavs fans that are so critical of Devin Booker and want to call him all sorts of names, but not recognize or be objective and see that Luka is crying on every single play. And the one that had me dying was right before halftime when Chris Paul maybe grazed his elbow a little bit, but not before that signature push off of Luka to try and create space. And if you watch, it's insane. The ball is still in the air, hasn't even hit the basket yet, and he's jumping up and down like a freaking child, man. It's just, I do not like that guy one bit.
I think the last thing I'll say about it is you can tell how fandom comes because the same things that we say about Luka Doncic is the same thing that they say about Devin Booker. He cries too much. He's looking for foul calls. Let's be honest. The NBA is about shot creation, and a lot of guys utilize a little bit of leverage and a little bit of that maybe elbow or extension to create shots. I mean, Devin Booker did it in that game. I remember specifically there was one play where he was driving to the basket and he just gave him. But if they're going to give it to Luka, you got to let it go both ways, right? And if you're going to continue to give the push-offs like that was going on, if he hits his arm on one play, it's the balancing act, right? That's how referees work, man. I'm telling you. It's like, if you miss a call over here, we might sneak one in over here to even the playing field for you guys. That's just the unwritten rules of officiating, to be honest with you. So there's no right way to call it, but I just think the aggressive extensions and the way that he consistently uses it within his game is just, it's not fun to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think that also comes with the limitations that Luka does have as an athlete, right? He's not the fastest guy. He's not the tallest guy. He's not small and he's not crazy slow, but he has to utilize those kind of aspects to continue to give himself opportunity for scoring because he's not going crazy dribble drives the same way that Devin Booker is. You know what I'm saying? Like, guys are staying in front of him, so he has to find a way to get that open spot. But
yeah.
Like we said, man, I wouldn't be surprised if we end up matching up with them in like the first or second round again. And I'm going to freaking have a heart attack if we have to play them that early.
That would be just our luck, man. I mean, and just last thing I'll say also, because then you got my blood boiling, is to your point, when you see one player having as many free throw attempts as the entire other team, you just want to see it called both ways. And I really don't want to watch a game where 50 plus free throws are being shot throughout the game. It just slows it down so much, makes it so hard to watch. But we talk about Mavericks fans making noise online. This one is one of their go-tos that they really love. Is just the matchup we had with them last season, and it's been fun because the Suns fans always fire back with, "Oh, how are Luka's final stats? I can't seem to find Luka's final stats anywhere." It's almost like he's never been to the finals. So you see, I think this was from Finding Nemo. It's like the mine.
Yeah.
Bird says it. Game seven. It's all they got, man. It's all they got. So they can have it now, and hopefully we can silence that hate this season. But honestly, I feel like they're just going to keep at it, even if we do win.
Wouldn't be surprised. But that's, one of the best parts about professional sports and teams that genuinely just don't like each other. I mean, after the press conference, Devin Booker was basically saying, hey, a lot of guys in this league, they like each other. They think it's all kosher. Everything's good on and off the floor, but there's smoke here. He don't like them. Kevin Durant's not going to like him either, especially that Kyrie Irving is on that team. Like, we don't know the extent of the relationship that they really had, but, they're opponents now. They're rivals, and this is going to be a fun one for years to come. And I think it's still going to be like that, whether Kyrie stays or goes, because Luka Doncic, unfortunately for us, is one of the best players in the NBA, probably an eventual MVP as well. But hey, stick with Game 7. We'll see what happens this postseason.
Exactly. They can have it for now, but I'm worried more about what's going to happen in the future and not hanging my hat on anything that happened in the past. So enough about that. I did kind of want to branch out to some other subreddits for other teams around the league, and to kind of keep it a little bit Suns related. I'll pull up this one here. This was on r/Go Nets, which is the Brooklyn Nets subreddit, and they seem to have a very maybe different opinion than some Suns fans. Where it seems like almost the trade was kind of like a win-win. Where this person's asking. They say, for anyone who might just be listening on the audio, it says, "I really don't know what to say. I never pictured us coming close to winning any trade that involved getting rid of Kevin Durant. But is it happening? Could it happen? When you factor in age and Cam Johnson plus picks, it's starting to look more even than ever." Which honestly is kind of what we were saying, is like, it is a win-win. Suns kind of gave up a lot, but when you get a guy like Kevin Durant, how could you not pull the trigger on that? And you see here, since the trade, Bridges is averaging 26.1 points per game, 5.9 rebounds. I don't know what those other numbers below mean off the top of my head. I'm guessing it's field goal, 3-point, and free throw percentages.
Yep.
And then on the other side, Kevin Durant, very similar, 26.7 points per game, 7.3 rebounds per game, 69% field goal, 54% 3-point, and 88% free throw.
69% from the field. I know it's just a 3-game sample size, but that's wild, dude. But, I mean, dude, that's the whole point about having conversations about sports. You can think one team might come out in the end. You can think one team might have gotten screwed. That's the point, right? We all have differences in opinions. But the smart thing to do as a cognizant sports fan is to listen to them and then bring your take in it and not attack people, right? I mean, on Suns Reddit, I saw somebody had posted just bad trade, ? Mikhail and Cameron averaging combined 39 points in their first 3 games with the Nets. Did the Suns give up too much for Durant? And the first comment is, shut up. Like, have some discourse, bro. Like, that's the whole point about being sports fans and talking about the teams that we love, because we all have different opinions at the end of the day. But don't be short-sighted. Don't be narrow-minded. Come on, Suns fans.
Absolutely. And that's
better than that.
That's the thing. We're all on the same team, right? In theory, it's like, explain to me with a level head why I'm wrong. Don't just make it a personal attack, calling me a neckbeard, saying I'm the dumbest person to ever walk on the planet. It's like, I love and hate Suns Reddit so much. You guys can be awesome, bring some good information, some funny memes. But like Mike's pointing out, you can be so brutal with someone who's just asking a simple question. I mean, I think I told you my story of a few years back, posting, "Oh, could the Suns be in the conversation to sign Giannis when he becomes a free agent?" And I got downvoted to oblivion just for asking a simple question. I mean, it's funny because they will answer your question, but they'll also call you a dumbass while they're doing it.
Of course.
but it's all love. No hate for the Suns Reddit or their
Hey, we
mods.
love y'all, man. Keep it coming, baby. Keep it coming.
100%. So I got a couple more here. Some fun ones. I was snooping on the Memphis Grizzlies subreddit, so y'all probably know what this is going to be about. We got it is with great sadness that the nonsense counter has been reset. Here's to hoping tomorrow is a better day.
Oh no.
And it's was that Ja Morant and Dylan Brooks?
Yeah.
Because Brooks got suspended for getting his, I think, 16th
16th
technical of the
tee.
season. Yep.
Yep.
And then Ja Morant, you all know the shenanigans he's getting into. So poor Grizzlies fans, man. I honestly, like, I was looking for them to kind of, I don't know what I was looking for from them, to be honest, but just really sad vibe in their Reddit right now.
Oh, dude. I mean, we are definitely in a day and age where it takes people 2 minutes to put out a meme. And some of them are just incredible. I think I saw, oh goodness, I saw a picture of Ja Morant's face photoshopped on the guy from Juice where they're at the pickup game. And he's like pulling out a gun. Like, it's just like, these people are just way too quick with it and just so witty, man. It's wild. I love it, man. But in regards to the Memphis Grizzlies, I really do hope that Ja Morant gets his stuff together and can be a really good professional role model for this league for years to come, because dude, he is a special talent. His athleticism is unmatched in the NBA right now. I feel like, he continues to grow his game. He's becoming a better shooter. He's becoming a better facilitator. And, leadership on the court has to transfer off the court as well. So, I'm not going to put all the blame on him. I think you were talking about how Steven Adams had a players only meeting where they were like, hey, we need to cut out the shenanigans, and look where that took them. But those are the kind of things that you need to do to hold your teammates accountable, and hopefully, they find their way. So.
Yeah, 100%. And I have hope for Ja. I mean, he has a lot of opportunity in front of him. He's still a young guy. I know Jalen Rose was talking about being a young star, navigating fame, and I think he's going to land on his feet. I mean, when you got a guy like Steven Adams and other mentors in the league, I'm sure guys are reaching out to offer some support. But I think he can get it together. I mean, he has his Nike deal for now. He has his Powerade deal that he just signed. And I have seen him do some good stuff on the court. I mean, I know a lot of these guys will give jerseys and shoes to the kids, but they don't have to, is the point. And I've seen Ja do that. So I got hope. It's we laugh. I love to poke fun. But really wishing him the best. And you're right. I think I was going to say back in the day, but it wasn't even that long ago. You used to have to use a computer program like Photoshop, and now you can just bust out Snapchat or any app on your phone and throw a guy's face on Michael Scott and Dwight Schrute here. And I love it, man. I absolutely love it. We have a pretty fun Snapchat group chat where we love Photoshopping each other's faces onto ridiculous pictures. And yeah, if you guys got any, drop them in the, tweet them to us, DM them to us. You might make it on an episode of PTO or the Heat Check Live.
Yes, send your memes. We love your memes, man. I include memes in our recaps all the time, man. It just makes it, a cool little side thing to, add within, all the info that we're throwing at you, and make you kind of chuckle every once in a while. So send them our way.
Oh yeah, memes make the world go around. I got one more Reddit reacts, but real quick shout out to our boy Chevin Nooney. Kevin Durant is on the Suns, and he's going to be in the Valley tomorrow. I am stoked. Mike is stoked. Chev, and I'm sure he's speaking for all Suns fans. But this last one, Mike, let's take a look. Again, I think this is from the Grizzlies subreddit, and kind of what Desmond Bain was looking at like tonight when he stepped out onto the court.
Oh,
this is the Grizzlies during their next game. It's the meme of Will Smith standing in the empty house. I think it was maybe like the last episode of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air or something like that. But yeah, Desmond Bain looking at his teammates, and it's just an empty house. He's the only man left standing.
Hey, I mean, I guess the good thing for them is that they built a substantial lead for their standings. So if they do drop a couple of games, I think they're still pretty decently solidified within the second spot. Denver's starting to just run away with it now. I think they're up 7.5 games right now. But hey, Desmond Bain, you still got Jaren Jackson Jr. I mean, Trey Jones stepped in and had a huge game for Ja Morant the other night. You don't have to do it alone, man. But I'm not surprised, man. I'm not surprised when your biggest asset is gone for who knows how long, you know? And we're still waiting to see what happens with the NBA investigation.
Right. And like we were saying there at the top, he could be facing up to a 50-game suspension if the investigation, goes that direction. I honestly hope for the league's sake that it doesn't go that way, because I feel like that would rob the Grizzlies of being competitive in the playoffs. Of course, you mentioned Jaren Jackson, Desmond Bain, Dylan Brooks. Those guys are still solid. Steven Adams is a good, solid center. I like that dude a lot, but just not having Ja Morant, I think, would be a disservice to NBA fans and just fans of the game.
100%. But Chris, oh man, I think we touched everything tonight, man. What, Suns only have 17 games left.
Yep.
There's still some wiggle room in the West. Seeding is still, going back and forth. I'd be surprised if the current 4 teams that are in the play-in are 4 or 3 different teams. Like, that's just how it is right now in the West right now. My goodness, March Madness is right around the corner. I'm sure we're going to dive into it next week and the week after. Keep tabs on it. Make sure that you keep your eye out for our bracket challenge as well. But Chris, I've always have an awesome time chopping it up, talking ball with you. I want to pass it over to you one more time before we leave and let the people know what's going on with you and lead us on the way out.
Yes, sir. I mean, hey, man, I love coming on here talking basketball with you. It's always crazy. I'm like, how are we going to make a 60-minute live stream out of this? And here we are almost 75 minutes later. But March is primetime basketball season, man. I'm just really stoked for March Madness. Already a ton of buzzer beaters here at the end of the college season. It seems like every day on my timeline, I'm seeing a new buzzer beater go in. And I expect more of that here in March. And like you said, the home stretch here for the Suns and some big games coming up. I want to see how they compete against the Bucks and the Warriors with this new look Suns team. And if things go the way they're seeming, it's only up from here. But Mike, appreciate you, man. Big Cats 2-0. Maybe we'll get some highlight tape out at the end of the season of what we were all about, something like that.
We'll put a little clip package together for the people. So keep your eyes out, guys. But with that being said, this is Pass the Outlet, episode 9. I'm your co-host, Michael Benjamin, joined as always by my wingman, Chris Patrick. Make sure you guys follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at AZ_VSP, Facebook at Valley Sports Plug. Here on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe. All of our podcasts go on to streaming services as well. But we love y'all. We appreciate y'all. Have a fun March Madness, and we'll see y'all next time.
Peace.
Ball is life, plain and simple. Ask any baller. If you know, you know.
The game has changed, but it's still the same. You want it, go get it. Shazam! The inbounds pass comes into Jordan. Here's Michael at the foul line. The shot on Elo. Ah! The Bulls win! They win it!
Mike, you're honestly telling me that he's top 5.
Yeah.
Top 5 of all time.
No question about it.
Booker, this is for the win. Got it. Wow.
The ruling on the floor is made basket.
One thing's for sure. Over at Valley Sports Plug, you're never going to catch us slipping. first overall pick, the Phoenix Suns select
3, 2, 1.